The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to The Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. I hope everyone had a happy holiday period and a happy new year, because we are coming back to you after we actually took a week off, Mike. And it was not accident. It was not entirely planned. It was nice to have a week off for the holidays for sure, but it was more because of travel restrictions for you specifically, which I think were affecting a lot of people over the past week. Yep. So we are back, and we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, on this feed, we have yet to talk about the fact that Devin Booker will be out for 4 weeks. I don't know if there's a lot for us to add at this point other than it's going to be a tough stretch without Devin Booker. We did hear recently that Cameron Payne and Landry Shamet should be back. That means the team is the closest to being whole that they have been since basically the start of the season, outside of the most important player, which is unfortunate. And I do think that we could have a quick conversation. I know we talked about this a little bit on the Patreon podcast, just about where they are right now and what could happen, because we do have it's New Year's Day when we're recording this right now, and we do have some things we want to talk about related to that. But before we do that, the Suns are currently right now in the 7th seed with a record of 20-17. In their last 10 games, they've won 4 games. They're 4-6 in their last 10. Struggling particularly on the road. They're still 14-5 at home. How crazy is that? 6-12 on the road. More road games recently. They're currently in the midst of a 6-game road trip. Knowing what we know now, which as of recently is that Cameron Payne, Landry Shamet back. Cameron Johnson's still not back. There was a brief glimmer of hope when he was listed as a game time decision on the NBA app, which the Phoenix Suns team quickly rebuffed and said that that was not true.
How long did how long did that last? For an hour before
I think I had about 30 minutes of happiness.
yeah.
Before James Jones and Monty Williams stripped it away from me.
He's coming, but
he's coming. Yeah,
at his own pace. Right?
And before Devin Booker, it seems, right? That's something that I think we can say.
Yeah, well,
at this point,
it's been pointed out by others in the Suns media sphere, and we've gotten limited information up to this point about Cam Johnson. But you look at that information, you look at the 1 to 2 month timetable that we kind of had to work with, and he's coming right up on that 2 month date. So yeah, I mean, everyone heals at a different rate, and I think the Suns have every reason to be super cautious with him after seeing what happened to Devin Booker, the fact that he came back, played 4 minutes, and re-aggravated his injury. So it might take a little while, but I would anticipate that little while being a couple of weeks or a few weeks at most. I don't really anticipate it being something that keeps him out, until the time when we're expecting Booker to return.
Yeah, I think what will be interesting to see is, like, if they were all healthy except Devin Booker, I actually think they could play pretty well. I think Chris Paul, as much as he's struggling, I think the Suns are struggling in the clutch. A lot of that has to do with, just not being whole. Devin Booker not quite being himself or not playing. But Chris Paul has kind of started to put it together. He's had some good games over the last 10 or so games, shooting relatively well, still not looking like himself as far as creating his own buckets, but doesn't look as hampered as he did early in the season. He starts putting it together. They get Cameron Johnson back, depending on how Cameron Johnson looks. If Cameron Payne's back and starts to play well again, I think they could do pretty well. But right now, they're not so far out. I mean, technically, they're in the play-in range. Right now, they're in the play-in range. And
who's,
I think
as a matter of fact, who's 8th? Do you have the standings open?
The Trailblazers, 18-17, right behind the Suns. Same in the loss column, two wins less than the Suns.
I would still take the Suns over the Blazers in a play-in game if it played today, I think. but there aren't.
I mean,
I
that's
think
the
I
thing.
would.
Devin Booker. It'd be a challenge. Who gets hotter, Devin Booker or Damian Lillard in that game? I think at this point. But the Suns, outside of their two stars, I think the Suns are much better put together as a team if they're healthy. Behind the Suns, the Trailblazers, the Warriors, the Jazz, and the Timberwolves, the ones sort of nipping at their heels right now are the Trailblazers and the Warriors. The Warriors have won 4 in a row. The Trailblazers are 5-5 in their last 10, so they're not quite as much of a scary prospect. The teams that sort of passed up the Suns at this point, the Clippers and the Mavericks. The Mavericks are on the second longest winning streak in the NBA. Yeah. 6 wins in a row.
It's hard
for the Mavs.
It's hard. You were joking, and I think in the Discord, it's just like Luka's. I mean, the MVP narrative has begun, and I can't say, at least at this point, that it's too early to really talk about it. It's just like, it makes sense. I mean, he's playing out of his mind. He's having incredible games. Kind of sucks that
he's been unbelievable. He had a 60-20 game.
It just sucks that, and this is what you were saying, and I agreed with, like, it's hard to enjoy. It's just from the Suns' perspective.
We have multiple reasons to not enjoy it.
It's just hard to enjoy Luka Doncic, as spectacular as he is. Putting on my most objective cap there. So but no,
there's of course the
great.
playoff. There's the playoff thing, and then the jersey that he's wearing, depending on your perspective, is the wrong one for Suns fans in a lot of ways, because you just kind of go, oh man, he's scoring 60 points with 20 rebounds. That would be nice for the Suns. But yeah, that they're right there. I think they can continue playing pretty well too. I mean, a lot of it is on Luka's back still. He's had 60-point games, 50-point games multiple times in the last few weeks, and wondering whether or not he can keep it up right now. I'm not gonna try to doubt. It's hard to doubt anything there. Yeah. But if he's hurt, obviously they could free fall pretty fast.
Sure.
And there's just no way of knowing whether or not that's going to happen. They can continue to win games.
He doesn't have a particular injury history, but of course this was the entire thing we were talking about with Devin Booker. On a slightly different scale, but still, I mean, Booker had multiple 50-point games to open up the season, and we were talking about the entire time. Both of us were nervous. Are you putting too much of a load on him? So, obviously there's always that question. With Luka, kind of coming back to the Suns, though, so I think, like you said, we're getting Cam Payne, Landry Shamet back likely tomorrow.
Yeah.
Cam Johnson next couple weeks, we hope. And then, let's see, who else is there? No one else is, everyone else is back, except for, obviously, there's no Jay Crowder trade, right? Because Okogie was injured briefly, he came back. Jock Landale was injured briefly. He came back. So otherwise, we've got a full slate. But
January 15th, right in the middle of that.
That's also true. We're not talking about that today. We're moving on for that today. Maybe next week. We'll see. We'll see how bad it gets.
It's 2 weeks from today. Yeah.
Yeah. But so the other little nugget to throw in there, though, is that between now and the end of January, the Suns have an incredibly hard schedule. They just factually do. So if they can get everyone except for Devin Booker back, how good of a basketball team are they?
Yeah.
Might be a 500 basketball team, might even be an above 500 basketball team, honestly.
I think if they're all looking good, I think they could play over 500, yeah.
But on the other hand, you're going to play the Grizzlies 2 more times. You've split so far. You did a really great job in the last game, but not an easy team. You're going to play the Nuggets. You're going to play the Nets.
The Cavs twice.
You're going to play the Cavs twice. You're going to play several. You're going to play several of these 500 teams that you were kind of talking about who are nipping on your heels. Teams like Golden State is in there, Indiana is in there, Miami's in there. And on the flip side of all that, there are only really 1 or 2 kind of gimmies in the entire schedule. There are only a couple of games you look at. They played Toronto on what day of the week was that? What day of the week is it now?
Tuesday?
Yeah, they played Toronto on Wednesday or something.
Yeah.
And that was one of their only sub 500 opponents of the entire month of January, and they lost that game. In fact, they lost that game in a really in bad fashion. And now your only opportunities to do that for the rest of the month are you've got the Timberwolves and you've got one game against the Charlotte Hornets, which is maybe a team you can beat up on. But this is not going to be easy, even if you're confident in the ability of these players without Booker to put together some sort of collective force. You have to prove it. You have to prove it against like contending basketball teams night in and night out, and that's going to be taxing.
I mean, even the bad teams have good nights too, and it just takes a good night of a bad team to beat the Suns in their current state. Timberwolves, by the way, they're awful. They've lost 6 in a row, and they're just, if you follow some of the post-game quotes of that team, it's kind of fascinating to see that slow train wreck that they've become. They seem to all just dislike each other at this point. But yeah, hopefully the Suns can win that one because that would be satisfying.
I know you're relishing that.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I just love it. I just think it's funny because I just think everywhere Rudy Gobert goes, there's some level of like personal dysfunction in the locker room. And that's got to say something about him that's not necessarily related to the basketball court. But we'll see what ends up happening there. It'll be interesting to track. Obviously, we're going to follow all of that. But because it's the new year, it's New Year's Day, once again, as we're recording this today, we wanted to just sort of take stock a little bit and talk about some New Year's resolutions for the new Suns owners. I wanted to specifically relate it to the ownership group because ultimately, it's funny how it went. They announced the Suns are going to be sold to Matt Ishbia. We had one podcast about it, 40 minutes. And we haven't really talked about it since, you and I. So I thought this sort of turning over into the new year would be a good opportunity to talk about what we want out of this new ownership group in the form of New Year's resolutions for Matt and Justin Ishbia. How do you feel? You got a list?
Yeah, I've got a list. Apparently not as long a list as you have, as you told me.
I wrote down 10 things.
I threw together some notes, so yeah, I think I'm prepared. Let's go.
There's one really obvious one, right?
Yeah, it's number 1 on my list. Are we talking about the G League team?
Yeah, it's got to be the G. That's the first place to go, right?
Yeah, I mean, we talked. Well, yeah, it's the same. It's the same old spiel. As I think most people know at this point, but in case you don't, the Suns are the only team in the NBA currently without a G League affiliate. And I don't know, I guess it's an endless debate about does that matter? Does that not matter? I've always been of the mind, and I believe you've been right there with me, of course, too, just that if you're going to go all in terms of truly investing in your product and truly investing in your developmental program and creating a sustainable environment that like creates something out of nothing, essentially, right? Finds unknown talent, these diamonds in the roughs and in the rough, and develops them into something playable at the NBA level, potentially even like, for playoff rotations. You need to invest in a G League program in order to do that, and the Suns have simply gone in the opposite direction of every other NBA organization over the past several years. So it is high time to bring back some G League version of the Suns. Now, where I think it gets interesting, as we've also talked about in the past, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily need to be in the form of the Northern Arizona Suns. Yeah. There is, I've pointed out, a G League team currently active, the only G League team that is unaffiliated, similar to how the Suns are unaffiliated, because the Suns are unaffiliated, you could say, in Mexico City. I think that would be really interesting. I think it's something to look at, but I would also understand if the ownership decides to go for something a lot more simple and puts a team in Northern Arizona again, or maybe even close to the Phoenix metro area. I'm not sure.
Funny enough, I had a conversation with somebody that works for the Cleveland Cavaliers recently about that. I think we briefly touched on it on a podcast in the past, but Cleveland's team, their G League team, is in Cleveland. And what it does for them is it allows their G League guys to access NBA resources. They don't have to create a whole other practice facility. They can just utilize the practice facility of the Cavaliers. They can use the same exact stuff. They also have guys who are, say, rehabbing, for example, that need to practice with the G League team, and they don't have to go somewhere else. They just stay in the city that they live and rehab in the city that they live in. And I think for a lot of them, when they had it there, they just like it more. So as a team, I think it just makes more sense. But
my rebuttal is that Mexico City is really cool. And and you could create these supercharged, because it's, what's the altitude there, like 7,000 feet? If you think
it's really high.
If you think Salt Lake and Denver, Colorado are bad, you could create these like supercharged basketball robots with superhuman lung capacity, essentially, by training them, molding them in the fires that are Mexico City. I'm being a little dramatic, but I think that would be fun. I hear you. I hear what you're saying too. And you know who that would really benefit, though? What you're saying about if you just had a G League team in Phoenix. Well, first of all, where would they play? You have to
I don't
figure
know.
that out, right? Like,
Put him in a high school gym. Nobody goes.
nah, come on. You got to be a little bit more fair than that. I mean, you should know.
I think
Phoenix
it would be
venues.
nice too for guys learning how to cover the league to be able to just go to G League games that easily as well.
Oh, I know they really appreciate it. It's where a lot of guys get their start is
Yeah.
because the G League teams are typically just happy to have media coverage.
Yeah.
What I was going to say though, it would really benefit the two-way players. I mean, imagine
absolutely.
Imagine being a two-way player. The Suns, to their credit, are at least still using their two-way spots over the past couple of years, but they use them in an entirely different way from other people. The way James Jones has been using his two-way slots is to pluck, maybe with the slight exception of Dwayne Washington Jr., where maybe he's a little bit younger. But for the most part, it's about plucking guys who are older, who have been overlooked. Maybe they're 25, 26, 27, haven't gotten off to an NBA start yet, and giving them an opportunity to work their way into an NBA rotation. Again, that's fit for the playoffs. That's fit for a contender. The way a lot of other teams look at these slots is they want to take young guys who, if you think about it, would have maybe been the 61st or the 67th or the 62nd pick in a draft, but just missed the cut. And they use it as a developmental tool, which is a great thing. But then those guys have to bounce back and forth between the affiliate and the big league club. And yeah, it would solve a lot of issues by just if that bouncing back process was essentially a 10-minute drive or even using the same facility.
I know we're preaching to the choir here, but there is zero reason the Suns should not have a G League team other than being cheap. It's the only reason. And when I was considering this, and we've had this conversation before, I decided to try to look up some players to try to illustrate the importance of a G League team. There was a player on the current reigning champion team that was in the G League relatively recently. Do you know who that is?
So a Warriors player?
A Warriors player.
It's
going to be obvious as soon as I say it.
Okay, say it.
Gary Payton.
Yeah.
II.
No, that is obvious. Yep.
Gary Payton II
Yep.
was on the G League as early as just like 3 seasons ago.
Right.
And the Warriors developed him, and he was on a multiple G League team. In fact, he's been called up to the NBA multiple times in the past, and then ended up on the G League team with the Warriors, where they saw something very specific about his skill set, which often happens with these G League players. They're not just stars; they're just some guys that do something really specific that they need, and they're able to call him up. And then he played a huge role on a championship-winning team just last year, and that's Gary Payton II, and that's an opportunity that the Suns would not have had if they didn't have a G League team, which they currently don't.
By the way, just as an aside, Gary Payton has not played a game this year. He's been injured. Is supposed to make his debut soon as another guy who you talked about how the Warriors are on a 5-game win streak.
Something like that. Yeah.
Steph's coming back soon, and they've got. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that Gary Payton is.
Gary Payton's on the Trailblazers now, I believe.
Oh my God! Yes, he is. Oh fuck!
But another team that's right behind the Suns.
Oh shit! Yeah. Oh my God! Yeah. I so totally forgot about that. He is on the Trailblazers.
If we're gonna do a quick aside, by the way,
he got paid. He got paid too on that contract, didn't he?
I think he's on like an MLE level contract.
Yeah. Well, that's getting paid for a two-way for a G League guy.
But real quick on him, there are rumors that he has been healthy and has not been yet allowed to play, and that it's possible that the Trailblazers are holding on to him to trade him. Which, by the way, sounds a little familiar. That's all I'll say. For the Suns, by the way. I'm just saying, they make a similar amount of money. I'm not saying Gary Payton's going to be on the Suns as early as next week or something like that. But Jay Crowder would look pretty good in a Trailblazers jersey.
Yeah,
he kind of makes sense on their team. Another player that was a G League player that won a championship, Pascal Siakam.
Yeah, they're full of them.
We keep talking about Pascal Siakam. This is a guy who they drafted, sent him to the G League to develop. He won a G League champion and was the finals MVP on a G League championship team, and then came to the NBA 2 seasons later in the NBA. He won a championship with the Raptors in the NBA. It's kind of wild to see that happen as easily as it happened with the Raptors, but that was just a team that had the opportunity to develop a player who was pretty raw, and then he became, right now is considered, he's an All-NBA player. He's third-team All-NBA last year, and that's how good he is right now. One more player there have been 4 players in the history of the NBA to win a championship with 3 different teams. Robert Horry, John Sally, LeBron James, and then the 4th one is a player who played in the G League. His name is Danny Green. And Danny Green was a player that was developed in the G League and then became an NBA champion on multiple different teams. Other champions too. JJ Barea played in the G League. Seth Curry. The Suns had an opportunity with Seth Curry. And these are guys that are just great examples of players that if you have a G League team, you're more likely to find. And if you don't, you're just really unlikely to find them. And I want to give the Suns some credit here. I think they've done a really good job with the two-ways. I think Dwayne Washington Jr. is an excellent two-way player and an excellent signing for a two-way player. How high his ceiling is will be, how high you feel about his ceiling will be dependent on just how you feel about him as a player. But
he's
regardless
single-handedly won games this year.
Yeah,
1 or 2
regardless
games.
Of any of that, you could just see it, right? You could just see that there's a bunch of skill there.
Yeah.
And he's signed to a two-way deal as a young guy, and that's a good signing. And then outside of that, Ish Wainwright, it's this guy's obviously not like an all-star or anything like that, but Ish Wainwright signed with a very specific set of skills to be the kind of player that the Suns don't have outside of him. And, they've done a good job with that. And I think, James Jones has said it before. He valued the G League until it was sold, and then he had to pretend like he never cared about it in the first place.
Yep.
And I imagine with a new owner, this should change. And I thought, that was going to be the one that was an obvious overlap for the two of us, so I did a little bit more research.
Kicked my ass there a little bit. Yeah, I appreciate it. Ish, by the way, I want to give Ish some credit, and the Suns get credit for this too, but just working on the right things with him. We don't get a ton of opportunities to talk about Ish because, truthfully, like, he's not relevant on a week-to-week basis. But
yeah, and maybe we care a little bit more than
right. I mean, look,
somebody like him. Sometimes.
We're terrible at appealing to the so-called casual fan or whatever.
I love Ish.
We're leading this podcast essentially with 15 minutes of G League talk. You know how our numbers are going to be off the charts here. But no, Ish is he's really worked on his shooting. And you can really tell this year. I mean, he's just statistically, he's up to 39% on threes. Still only 2.3 attempts per game, but obviously he doesn't play a lot of minutes. But he's sped up his shot release as well. There have been some threes in recent games where he basically has to catch it in a really narrow shooting pocket, and with essentially no dip is still able to fire it off and makes it. And this was a guy who was essentially a complete non-shooter last year. So, even if it's just baby steps, small stuff like, starting out, focusing on the corner, slowly working your way around the perimeter and up towards the wing, he's getting there. And, I don't know if there is going to be a roster spot for him come playoff time, if the Suns do make the playoffs, that is. But yeah, he's definitely developed quite a bit thanks to that two-way program in general. It's just he's made perfect use of exactly what that program is designed to do. Yeah,
and the Suns have really needed guys.
Yeah, I
recently.
Mean, they need Ish Wainwright minutes right now. Like if it weren't for him, we'd be playing, I don't know, Dario Saric 25 minutes per game over the past couple weeks. And look, like that would be fine too, I guess. But it's not very inspiring. So him and Dwayne have been playing real minutes. And even if it hasn't resulted in a lot of wins, it's resulted in a couple. They're doing their best. So.
They outscore teams with Ish Wainwright on the floor more than they get outscored. And I think you're talking about his shooting, and I think it has gotten better. I mentioned early in the season that his defense looked bad this year. It's also gotten better. I think his team defense is getting better. He's fouling less. He's moving his feet a little bit better. And I just think it would make sense to have a G League team when the Suns are healthy to send him down there to work on those kinds of things. And we'll see if that ends up happening. I have another one related to this for Matt Ishbia and Justin Ishbia. Expand the scouting department. This is a big one for the Suns in general. You talk about having a G League team. Well, they've struggled in the draft too, whether it be even just valuing a draft pick in a way that just allowed them to trade it for Landry Shamet, and Landry Shamet playing relatively well before his injury. But even still, sometimes it would be good for the Suns to draft a player and then develop him slowly so that they have some level of salary. But when you have a G League team and you have a really expanded scouting department, it's almost doubly important when you have a roster full of people who have huge salaries, which is something the Suns currently have, because Devin Booker is on basically a massive max deal. DeAndre Ayton is on a max deal. Chris Paul, assuming he is still on the Suns next year, which I do at this point, will be making $30 million. Cameron Johnson is up for an extension. Mikal Bridges is making over $20 million. All of this combined puts them well over the salary cap, and that means that they have to double their efforts to find players who make a small amount of salary who can contribute. And yes, they've done a pretty good job of that. I think the majority of their, either like we're talking about with the two-ways, or even their minimum contract guys like Damian Lee, for example.
Damian Lee and Okogie, yeah. Guys
Damian Lee and Okogie, they're doing a good job, yeah. But it's just something that I think if they had more resources, they could do even better. As I talked about with James Jones talking about the G League team, well, we had one, and talking about how important it was compared to him talking about how they didn't need a G League team after they sold it, I think is very similar to the way he talked about how he's okay only having 6 guys in the front office. I don't know if that's true, or if he's just carrying water for an owner that will now be gone, and he would prefer to have an expanded scouting department. But I think it would be pretty good for us to have one. What do you think?
I agree, and I think broadly speaking, in the broadest sense possible, what you're talking about, the common theme between this, low draft picks, and G League talent, we're talking about extending the life cycle of a contender, because every contending team has what I think you could refer to as a life cycle. And you know, if you go back and look at, like, for instance, the Suns team, the last time the Suns were a contender in their history, which was the mid-2000s, and we talk often about kind of the death in their life cycle of when they no longer were really a contender. It was a similar pattern to where you had a few older veterans who were all high draft picks who eventually get to this point where they pan out, they develop exactly to the level that you want. You know, if you're Amari Stoudemire, if you're Sean Marion, if you're all these guys, Steve Nash obviously became an MVP later in his career. But then you get to a point where you've got a lot of veterans, you've got a lot of high salaries, and if you don't put in the effort to pump that new blood into the system and to find, because unfortunately this is the way it works in a business like the NBA, cheap labor who can at least be cheap on their first contract and then you pay them later. If you don't find that, you die. It's not a sustainable strategy. You're going to have a veteran team that maybe has 1 or 2 cracks at a championship, but it's not sustainable, and that's going to be the end of your life cycle. We're seeing that exactly again with the Suns in 2022. They've got Chris Paul. They drafted Devin Booker a long time ago. They drafted Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton, Cam Johnson, who they haven't paid yet, but they have to very soon, or at least make a decision there. All of these guys, very high salary demands, already eating up the vast majority and maybe even pushing you just by themselves, just through those 4 or 5 names, into the luxury tax. Now, if you want to get any type of additional return on investment, you need to nail your late first-round picks. You need to nail your second-round picks. You need to find G League talent like all of these teams, the Toronto Raptors, the Golden State Warriors, the Miami Heat, all of these organizations have done in the past, the San Antonio Spurs. Because if you don't invest in that stuff, it's just game over. You know, it's just not.
And there's no salary cap. There's no salary cap for those kinds of positions, right?
Right.
It's just you either hire them and spend the money that it takes to develop them, and that means scouting, and that means G League, and that means development staff, or you save money and you're not as good in the future. The Golden State Warriors in the 2019 draft had the 28th pick in the draft. You know who they picked?
Jordan Poole.
Jordan Poole.
Yeah, if they didn't have Jordan Poole, no championship last year.
Exactly.
Steph's legacy, ruined, tarnished.
You know,
Jordan Poole saved Steph Curry's
pick.
Legacy. I mean, you know, we could say it.
Yeah, the Suns traded the 30th pick for Landry Shamet. Look, and maybe that draft wasn't that great, but I brought up the draft to look at Jordan Poole in that pick. As I look at that pick, 28th pick was Jordan Poole, 29th pick was Keldon Johnson, 30th pick was Kevin Porter Jr., 31st picked in that draft, Nick Claxton.
Those are all contributors.
Yes, the Suns would do a lot better having any of those 4 guys rather than Landry Shamet at this point. And if they had proper scouting, maybe they would pick one of those guys. I'm not saying that it would have happened in the draft that the pick was traded, because I believe it was Day'Ron Sharpe who was picked in the Landry Shamet place, but maybe the Suns would have picked somebody different. And Day'Ron Sharpe's good. He's not like, I'm not like kicking myself for not having Sharpe on this team instead of Landry Shamet. But Jordan Poole, Keldon Johnson, Kevin Porter Jr., Nick Claxton, there are guys who are picked late in the first round when you have late first round picks, which maybe they'll have a higher pick this year, but late in the first round that can contribute. And it just makes sense for the Suns to actually be prepared to pick those guys, even if they can't contribute right away, which is something that James Jones isn't always up for. But it is something that is important for them to do. You got another one?
Yeah. Is it my turn?
Yeah, you can go.
Okay. So my next one, this one's less, it's less related to the current team as it currently is constructed or whatever. It's more about, I just wrote it, invest in the local community. And
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, the way because I wanted to talk about this at some point, and I wasn't sure if it would fit more towards the beginning or the end of the episode, but I just want to make the greater point of when you come in, you've bought the Phoenix Suns and you've bought the Phoenix Mercury. It's about more than just, even if this hasn't always been the way that this organization or these organizations, plural, were treated in the past. Maybe they were treated like a cash cow. Ideally, we don't want you to come in and treat these two teams like a cash cow. Even just keeping the teams in Phoenix is not necessarily enough to satisfy me in that regard, if that makes sense. Like, great that there will continue to be basketball in Phoenix, but it needs to be basketball in Phoenix that serves the Phoenix community. And I actually want to check, not that this is a box that has been entirely checked off by them already or whatever, but I want to give credit to the Ishbias as it relates to this, because already what it's all about is about creating an unparalleled basketball community in Phoenix that is just as strong as any basketball community in the country, right? And already what the Ishbias have done, they haven't even turned over the ownership yet, right? The ink isn't even on the paper, and already it was announced. Dave King, I want to give a shout out to him, the managing editor over at SB Nation's Bright Side of the Sun. He partners with the Phoenix Suns organization, and for the past several years at least, I don't know exactly how many, they have done what is called Bright Side Night, where they send through reader donations to Bright Side of the Sun. They send a certain number of underprivileged youth to their first Suns game. They usually do it sometime, in like January or February, sometime around the midseason point. The Ishbias have already announced that they are donating $100,000 to that cause. That will be enough to send, I believe it's 7,000 underprivileged youth to their first Suns game this year. It's going to be sometime in the next few weeks. I forget exactly which game it is because I don't have it just in front of me. But already is exactly the sort of investment that I am talking about. Just coming in and immediately in good faith showing kind of this investment in the local community. And so, the other thing I would say here is some of the more cynical among us would say, well, of course, they're going to come in and do that. They essentially just want to buy good PR. And my response to that would be, of course, that's what they're doing. They're buying good PR, but, that doesn't mean that we should be above calling a good deed a good deed. And so I want to give credit to the Ishbias that they already came in and are already showing that they can just impact the community in so many different ways here.
I think that's an excellent one, and I think shouting out that donation is great because regardless of what you think is or their motivation was, it's just cool to give that opportunity to a bunch of kids, and it's really awesome that they did that. And I think investing in the community is the right way to put it. I put something as simple as I think they should move to Phoenix. And I understand they have businesses elsewhere, but I would like an owner that lives in Phoenix. I don't know. Maybe that's wrong. But I do think that he, being Matt, did say that he had no plans to move to Phoenix, and I think part of that is related to the fact that he has a lot of employees, and they built this big campus for their mortgage business in Michigan, and I don't think it would be wise to say I plan on leaving when you have that big giant business in Michigan. So to be fair to him, I understand why he said that, but I do think that being part of the community probably would help with paying back the community.
Do you feel
in a lot of ways?
Do you feel the same way about me?
Yeah.
Are you requiring that I move to Phoenix too?
I think you should donate $100,000 to Brightside right now.
I will get on that as soon as I can work together $100,000. By the way, here's our weekly plug. If you want to donate to the Patreon, no, it's only $3 a month to join the Discord. If we get 33,000 more people in there, then I'll make that
Between
donation
now and
straight
next
away.
month. Yeah, we could donate $100,000 if 33,000 people join our Patreon
For sure.
But yeah, I think, just living in Phoenix would be nice. It'd be nice to have somebody that understands the community in a deeper way than somebody who lives far away. And look, I don't know. I think for somebody like Matt and Justin, but let's just say Matt in particular, I don't think he was trying to buy a team in Phoenix. I think he was just looking for the first NBA team that was for sale that was a good franchise. Mm-hmm. And Phoenix was that opportunity. And, that's good and bad. Robert Sarver's from Arizona or lived in Arizona for a long time. And, it didn't benefit the Suns in many ways. So that doesn't necessarily mean anything negative about Matt Ishbia. But if you're talking about, being a part of the community, there are ways to do that from afar. And I think they're starting to do that just by donating money. I am a little curious, too, because Matt, in subsequent reporting after the initial report, sort of said that Justin will be one of the managing governors and a part of that. And part of me wondered if Matt will continue to live and work in Michigan and Justin will be with the team more regularly, because that was the impression I got from some of the press that came out afterwards. And that does... it's just kind of an interesting situation where he could be far away. Justin could be, maybe he has a job that doesn't pay him as much as Matt and he could kind of work for the Suns instead. So we'll see what ends up happening there. It'll be interesting to see, but I think that being a part of the community, as you put it, is very important. Anything else on that one?
No. Well, what do you got next?
I have one that's related to Devin Booker, and it's two-part. I think it's really important for this ownership group to ingratiate themselves to Devin Booker and to talk to him and sort of understand the importance of Devin Booker's legacy to him and to Suns fans. But on the other side of that, I also think it's important to understand that Devin Booker is not the general manager of a team, and you don't need to ask. You need to just build the right team around him. Of course, you can always ask a star player for input. You can always talk to them and make sure they're on board with the moves that you make. But NBA players are notoriously bad general managers.
Oh yeah,
as they're currently in the league.
Is that true?
I mean, LeBron James is an interesting one. He kind of, if you believe that he was a catalyst for trading for Russell Westbrook, as an example, you have to make sure that you do right by Devin Booker, but that does not mean that you need to allow him to dictate moves that are made.
What?
On the team.
What seed would the Devin Booker, Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell core be right now? Would it be better than 7th?
That's interesting. Is that, so does that mean no? I mean, I guess that means no DeAndre Ayton unless you're trying to play the two center lineups. With Ayton
probably not
as well. So the defense would absolutely crater. If you have Mikal Bridges, that would help a lot. Yeah, probably like the 7th seed. Yeah, I would say better than the current Timberwolves because they don't have that grumpy Frenchman on their team. But yeah, not great, not super great. But I have another part of this. It's actually two of them that I'm going to combine here. I want Matt Ishbia to just pay the tampering fines and just tamper.
Wow. I did not think of that.
The New York Knicks tampered to sign Jalen Brunson this year.
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson this year. Now the Knicks are having their best season in a long time. They're 5-5 in their last 10, but had before this last 10 had one of their best stretches they've had in a while. Jalen Brunson is a huge part of that, and it's brought a lot of excitement and fun back to the New York Knicks. It also allowed, I think, somebody like Julius Randle, a major topic of this podcast, to thrive because he had a point guard for the first time in his career, basically, or since LeBron James.
Shocker. Absolute shocker. That anyway, I don't have to do it today.
Yeah,
but
point guards help, right? Yeah, they help, especially bigger guys.
Yeah.
But they were fined for tampering, and their punishment was a second-round pick.
Well,
That's nothing. I'm sorry. That's nothing. I know we're talking about the importance of picks.
Yeah, it's a little at odds with what we said in the first 30 minutes of the podcast.
You're talking about the importance of picks, but if you can get a star player by tampering and it costs you a second-round pick, it's kind of worth it. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
And that means just all of this comes down to being able to put the right money up to make a competitive team. But players want to play with Devin Booker right now. I think that is a real thing, and I think that there is a possibility of Devin Booker becoming a little bit more of a recruiter as time goes by, especially as Chris Paul starts to deteriorate into dust over the next few years. But as that happens, it's important to look. I don't want you to break all the rules. I don't want you to cheat or anything. But the reality of the current NBA is recruiting happens between players, and that means you kind of have to let it happen. And if you get caught, just pay the fines. Don't try and be too much of a stickler to the rules. Like I think there's a chance that Kevin Durant was recruited here. I don't think that James Jones was surprised by the news that Kevin Durant wanted to play here, and I think Devin Booker had a little bit to do with that. Right now, it's possible that there's been some phone calls made to somebody named Kyle Kuzma, and Kyle Kuzma may want to play in Phoenix.
Didn't they just go golfing yesterday together or something?
Did they? I didn't see that.
I thought I saw a picture that Kuz and Book were on the golf course together. I could be making that up.
But, I don't know. We'll start that rumor whether or not it's real.
Yeah, I mean, if maybe it didn't happen, but I'm saying it happened, so quote me.
Exactly. The punishments are not bad for these kinds of things, and sometimes the players that you get out of it are worth it. So
we also haven't seen the precedent yet. Like, has there been an owner or an ownership group that has been a stickler about it? I don't think it's happened. I think
the rumors are that Danny Ainge was like that. That he... Oh, no, not Danny Ainge. Mitch Kupchak was like this and refused to break any rules. And the idea of that was that he was the only general manager like that, which put him at a disadvantage because he refused to talk to free agents before you were allowed to talk to free agents and didn't have any back channels to contact agents about players before they were available and things like that. So... I think that owners kind of do that right now. I honestly, I think James Jones probably does too. He's very good at pretending he's following all the rules though, and I think that's part of the job too. And I guess paying the tampering fine if you have to is okay with me.
I like it. All
right, you got another one?
Yeah, my next one is a little wordy. I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to explain this. But
all right.
Seek balance. It's not that wordy. Seek balance in team building philosophy. What I mean by that is there's a sitting duck front office right now for the Suns, a lame duck front office, if you will. We don't know what is going to become of James Jones and company. Maybe they're going to stay. Maybe they're going to go. Maybe more people are going to be hired alongside James Jones. We don't know. I assume they're having those conversations internally. Right now, we don't know, and we're probably not going to know until the offseason. I fully 100% expect the Ishbias to want to hire at least some of their own guys, right? At least. Maybe all of their own guys.
Yeah.
As they start approaching what sort of basketball minds they want to put in the front office, I think it's interesting to think about the fact that right now in the NBA, there are essentially two types of executives, or at least two main types of executives that we have. One of them is what I think James Jones currently is. Increasingly, we're having former players enter these sorts of roles. And I think the established advantage in a lot of cases that players have is that it's a human game played by humans. And who is better to understand the plight of the player than a former player themselves, right? These people who really understand what it means to be a player and who can connect with current players on a deeper level. And furthermore, beyond just kind of like trying to game the system out of them or anything, just like at a very basic level, it's important to treat your players. They're not just a product. It's important to treat them like human beings. I think we've very specifically seen executives come through the Suns front office in the past who did not take that lesson into consideration and paid the price for it. Ryan McDonough, I think, is a main example. Hurt the
entire reputation of the Phoenix Suns, arguably.
Right. Hurt the entire reputation of the Phoenix Suns because he just saw every player as an asset. That's executive number one that you have, right? You've got those guys.
Can I just quickly mention that Justin Ishbia on Twitter follows Sam Hinkie?
Okay, and this is
Just want to quickly mention that.
executive number 2 enters the
I did
stage.
look up if Sam Hinkie went to Michigan State right away. That was the first thing I checked.
Where did he go?
I think UCLA, somewhere in California.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Executive number 2 is a Sam Hinkie. Executive number 2, they go by many names. Analytics, analytical people.
Asset guys, yeah.
Asset guys, nerds, water boys. According to some might call
Stanford.
Some might call them
by the
what?
way.
Stanford. Stanford, Harvard.
Stanford guys.
Stanford, Harvard, MIT, custodians, janitors,
Yeah.
water boys. No,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, these are people who
Bots.
bots. These are people who don't necessarily come from a basketball playing background, but who are very established in their own field and who have been pushing the boundaries for many years now of trying to use analytics and quantitative methods to push our understandings of how you can best generate these advantages on an organizational level, right? I would also point out the fact that there's a smaller third group of people who I think are legitimately both. Sometimes you have people who come from a basketball playing background and are still fully on board with analytics.
Steve Kerr.
Right, but I think that's a smaller group, and it's more common to find a guy who is more firmly in camp A or camp B. It's the classic eye test versus stats thing. My point today is not to choose any particular side. I hope that the Ishbias give balance to the Suns organization because I legitimately think that is the best path going forward. Now, where that can get a little bit tricky is if you kind of have a split power situation in the front office where, I mean, say you had one James Jones and one Sam Hinkie and they had equal power in the organization, could be the type of thing where, people start to butt heads and maybe it all falls apart and makes no sense. But what I would just implore the new owners to consider is just giving equal, not necessarily equal, but just giving that perspective. Every perspective deserves some weight within the organization somehow. I think they need to take their analytics seriously. I also think they need to treat the players like human beings. And I think it's a fairly simple goal, to be honest, at the end of the day, to achieve.
That's a really fascinating one. And yes, it did take a few words to explain, but I think for the reason there. No, that was good. And you know what? While you were talking to, I did Google to see if I could find any quotes by Tom Izzo about analytics. Just out of curiosity to see how he felt about them.
Tom Izzo, my favorite shot is the 1-footed 18-foot.
Yeah. Right. I did just in that quick Google, I found a headline that says, "Analyst Tom Izzo lost recruits because he wouldn't cheat." So for whatever that's worth, that was kind of related to the last one that I just said there. But I am going to be interested. Often you think of these younger owners, like I don't know who you can even point at. I guess Lacob is probably one of the younger ones, but Mark Cuban, I think, was the youngest.
As I called him in a recent podcast, people pointed that out.
We talk
to me
a lot,
in the
man. You
Discord.
can't get everything right. You can't get everything right. But you think of these younger guys as people who like analytics, but it.
Well, I think a lot of it too is you have these. I mean, who's buying NBA teams? Billionaires.
They're tech guys often, yeah.
Sometimes they're tech guys, and there's an outsized proportion of these guys who are these eccentric types who it's not enough for them to own a team.
Right. They want to change the game.
They want to change the game. They all think
light years ahead.
They all think they're Billy Bean. And you know what? Sometimes, 1 out of every 15 of you might be Billy Bean, but a lot of you are absolutely
One
not.
out of every 15 of you may have just happened to draft Steph Curry.
Right.
And that makes every decision you make seem a lot better.
Yeah.
To be fair, Steph Curry, he kind of changed the game. I think you bring up a lot of good points there, and I want to just sort of add to that what I had written as related to that was just let the basketball people do their thing. And it's the first thing that we talked about when talking about Matt Ishbia. Coming from a basketball background is good in that he's going to really care whether or not the team is good. Now, overestimating how much his personal, how much he actually affected winning with his decisions could impact what he thinks about his decisions as it pertains to the Phoenix Suns. We need him to understand that somebody even like James Jones is going to be really important because of their experience and to allow them to do their thing. We're talking about expanding the scouting department. Let the scouts do their thing. Don't go in there and text about somebody like Michigan State prospects every single time they have questions about that. I did hear a rumor, and this may or may not be true or may not be something that I should be bringing up on this podcast, but I did hear a rumor that Steve Ballmer has a burner account that he follows NBA people and then texts people in the front office about players that he sees on Twitter.
I 100%. I believe it. I 100%
yeah,
believe it.
That's the kind of thing that like, and I'm sure they just go, yeah, whatever, Steve. Or I think he seems to let the basketball guys do their thing.
Can I be honest? If I bought a team, I would do that too. Like,
100%, yes, absolutely.
That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go to the I think I'd like to believe that if I was in that position, I wouldn't force anyone's hand on decisions. I'd like to believe that I'm that person, but would I at least stick my nose?
Who do you think made the DeAndre Ayton pick? Ultimately.
That's a good.
It had to have been Sarver, right?
Well, I think there's a 9.
It's the number one pick. It's the only number one pick he's ever had. If you're the owner of a team and the ultimate decision comes down to you and what you say, you're going to make that pick yourself. And I don't blame you. I think if you're the owner, I probably would too.
I think that's a good point, but also I do think there is a legitimate chance that they actually did want Ayton anyway. But yeah, I can see it.
I mean, it was close. I mean, you can talk about it all you want now, but it wasn't a clear-cut situation for everyone when it came to that draft. But I think that's the type of decision where if you're an owner, you're like, why do I own an NBA team if I can't even pick the number one pick for my team? Make that ultimate decision. So yeah, I think you're right, but it's just not. It's not on my wish list here. It's not on my New Year's resolutions for him. But you just gotta let him do their thing.
To your point, in contrast to that, there's a difference between doing that and then if you've got the 28th pick. And whoever your owner is won't shut the fuck up about, you guys should draft Nick Claxton versus Jordan Poole or whatever. There's some things it's just none of your business. Stay out of it.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
Let us do our jobs.
Exactly right. But I mean, that's why it's important to have the guys you trust. And I think that's why oftentimes these guys want to hire their own guys, right? Because they're coming to a team and they're saying, okay, you don't want my input on this thing? Well, I barely know you. I just got here. I just bought the team. Compared to, okay, I hired you, I trust you, I want you to make this decision, okay, I'm going to stay out of it. That's a different situation for an owner. And, to that, I'm going to say my next one here. It's don't be too precious, but also don't be dumb. Because I think there is a balance there. You have assets. The Suns do have assets. They have all of their future first-round picks. They have Mikal Bridges. They have DeAndre, and if they want to make trades, they have potentially Cameron Johnson on a long-term deal as early as this free agency, but even just for the rest of the season. And they have all of that right now. And then they have a player that was playing arguably at a top 10 level this season in Devin Booker, meaning they are now on the timeline of Devin Booker and need to capitalize on that timeline as quickly as possible. But you can't be too dumb, right? You don't want to trade too much stuff. You don't want to trade DeAndre Ayton for somebody who sucks or for parts, if you will. You have to make the right moves at this point. But also, I don't think that you need to continue running this team back if you don't fully believe that it's going to capitalize on Devin Booker's prime. Mm-hmm. So you can't be too precious with these assets that you have and hold them real close to your chest as long as possible, the way arguably the Suns have done for the last 2 seasons. But you also can't just make a trade just to make a trade. You got to make the right moves. And I guess this is kind of the wish list for every owner of every team.
For sure.
But I do think it's a unique situation in that he's coming in to evaluate where they're at right now. And he's going to, I'd be surprised if they didn't make some pretty big changes in this coming offseason.
I see what you're coming at. I kind of have something sort of like this on my list, but I approached it a little bit differently in the sense that I didn't say don't be dumb. I think I might be willing to embrace more stupidity than you are. The way I put it is no half measures going forward.
I like that. Yeah, it's very similar. Yeah.
If a new chapter of Suns basketball is coming soon, I'm willing to embrace it. I just
You're
want
talking Sam Hinkie trading Devin Booker.
See, you would call that dumb. I would probably call that dumb too. I would probably call that dumb too. That's too much. That's too much even for me. But no, I mean like gutting the entire team outside of Devin Booker. That's a path. It's not the path I would choose, but honestly,
it's not the path he would choose either. Devin Booker.
if Matt Ishbia hired someone who came in and did that, I would respect it. It would take balls. It would not be a half measure. And so I think, obviously that's not the ideal path. The ideal path, I think, is you go all in on starting to put some of these assets to use, and really build a real win now team around Devin Booker while he's in his prime. But regardless, whatever you do, I can respect a little bit of eccentricity. I just want.
Right.
I just
want commitment. You want commitment to the bit.
I want commitment to the bit. If it's going to be a bit, let's have a grand old time and laugh about it for the next 3 or 4 years. I want to commit to a direction. Exactly.
That was exactly. You're right. Actually, I wanted to argue with you, but thinking about the last 10 years of Robert Sarver, they were straddling two different things for like the first 6 or 7 years of that. There was this, are we going to take? No, we're not going to take. Are we going to try and win? We're kind of going to try and win, but not make trades. And
it's so bizarre.
That's just no good. It's bad. It's bad in the NBA to straddle those things. You either have to go all in and trying to win, or, go the other way. But like sometimes you go all in on trying to win and the team just slowly gets better and better and better, as it did the last few years for the Suns. Mm-hmm. It's not always going to be immediate, but they were committed to it. And I think there was some years with Robert Sarver in there where the Suns just had no direction.
In brief defense of not necessarily even Sarver, but just in defense of that strategy, I do think the really bizarre thing about the last 10 years of Suns basketball is the catalyst to what is the Devin Booker era. The Suns got their best player that they still currently have today, not through tanking. They spent years tanking, and they got some good, some solid players out of that. They got Ayton Bridges and Cam Johnson in back-to-back years. But it was when they weren't tanking that they got the best player out of all of them, right? Yeah. So it's just kind of funny how it materialized.
Do you have any more sort of serious basketball ones?
I don't have. I have one which I kind of was saving for the end.
Okay.
It's serious.
I have a few ones that are kind of quick here.
Go for it.
That I want to just go through. Number one, don't be a weirdo.
Yeah, that's should have said at the beginning, honestly.
Just don't be weird. Just don't do weird stuff, Like it's not just treating the staff well. Obviously, we want you to treat the staff well. That's like it almost, I guess it has to be said at this point. It should be something that goes unsaid, but it has to be said. Treat your staff well. But also, I don't want to have to get on this podcast and defend weird things that you say or do, or just talk about them.
And we won't.
Just don't be weird. Don't be weird.
We won't, for the record.
No,
necessarily
right,
defend, because you're not giving us a media credential, so we can say whatever the hell we want. There are other people.
We never asked, but
we never asked, but
he might. Yeah,
we wouldn't have gotten it. There are other people who are bound to especially under the Sarver administration or whatever Sarver ownership, had to watch what they said because they were also covering the team. They were also going into the locker room, and it's a really scary and a really shitty thing, but also a very real situation that NBA teams can hold that over certain beat reporters or in some cases bloggers or other local media's heads of we can control what you say and what gets out there because ultimately we control your access to the players. For us, I've always considered it very much an advantage that we don't have access to the players, if only because it means we can say whatever we want with no restrictions. Now, that being said, if the Ishbias buy a facial recognition software that is now going to ban me from the Footprint Center so I can't go to any games, that would be unfortunate. But maybe that's
it
the
is
future.
Bizarre that, like, for the things that we've said about Robert Sarver, we would have been banned if it was about the Knicks. Probably.
If it was James Dolan, maybe
we would have been banned from going into that arena. That's why I don't have my face online. No, I'm kidding. Let's see. Let me do another one here. Pay for your own stadium stuff. This is probably not,
that's
as far as New Year's resolutions go, it's probably not in the next year and probably no time soon. But if the Suns ever need some stadium renovations or a new stadium or something, just buy it yourself. I don't want to have to pay for it out of my tax money. Are residents of Phoenix willing to do that? Yeah, I think probably most of them are probably fine, or like a large percentage of them are probably fine. But just do it yourself. Yeah, you're right. It is an ambitious one. But one more since that one doesn't require any analysis, that I just want to bring up. Let me make sure I've done them all. Yes, I have. And this one is play the media game, because I don't think that Robert Sarver did. Now, a lot of what we've attributed to James Jones about not playing the media game could actually have been Sarver related. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I can say, based on my reading of it, Adrian Wojnarowski and Robert Sarver were not friends, and they did not get along. And I think that I can be pretty confident in saying that that's true. Now, compare that to how Woj talked about Ishbia on his podcast, breaking down the Suns. Sounds like a guy who wants to establish a good relationship with a new owner.
Oh, especially
in Woj.
Has anyone inquired who Woj owns his mortgage through? Whatever his home is. Have we not considered the serious power that the Ishbias might hold over some very important people around the league?
A large segment, of the NBA media. The Suns as a team, as a fan base, not super popular right now with fans of other teams. Pretty well disliked, I would say. And as much as we can attribute that to a lot of different things, I think not playing the media game here a little bit probably has some impact on how people feel about the Suns. They, fans of other teams, they're not following you and I most of the time, right? They're not following Kellen or Gerald and just hearing day-to-day stuff about the Suns. They're only hearing the bad stuff that goes viral. You play the media game right? You're friends with Shams, you're friends with Woj. You're getting some nice little PR directly to everyone's phones, since everyone has notifications on for those guys, if you play the media game right. Now, are there advantages to not playing the media game at all? Maybe. I haven't really quite thought through it, because I'm not really sure that it has any impact on actual moves that general managers make. I'm not actually sure. So part of me wonders if playing the media game right is entirely PR related, if it's entirely marketing related, because then you get the stories in the way that you want them to be told out in front of fans in the way that you want them to be said. So part of me wonders if it's entirely marketing related to play the media game. Now, having a new owner that does not have all these previous grudges that existed within Sarver, to the extent, by the way, that there were rumors that he was unwilling to sell the team to Bob Iger because he believed Bob Iger, in his position with Disney, affected ESPN writing the story about Robert Sarver in the first place, so he refused to even entertain the idea of selling the team to Bob Iger. That's the kind of person that Robert Sarver is. So, like, a brand new owner without all those previous baggage, maybe all of a sudden you could play this media game a little bit better and get some good words about the Suns written in the future. What do you think?
Doesn't it make you feel... I'm not questioning your particular morals or ethics or whatever before. So hear me out. But like, I don't know. I just feel gross about working with Shams and Woj in their current form. I mean, the Suns, we've seen them put out some pieces. Who writes a lot of the Suns stuff currently is Mark Spears, because he has an established, very good relationship with Chris Paul, and he's written some very good articles over the years. But I agree with you. On the one hand, you need bigger weapons, right? You need more power. Yeah,
don't hate the player, Sam. Hate the game.
Yeah, I mean, they just kind of suck. The two big guys, I'm just kind of cynical right now about the state of big NBA media. But yeah.
I think one of the reasons Suns fans were so mad about the state of NBA media is because it was constantly played against the Suns. We were on the receiving end of that.
I can't fault you that it's definitely consistent logic, right? If you said earlier you want them to tamper, then you also want them to play the media game. It's exactly, don't hate the player, hate the game. It's just the system.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, what's your last one?
My last one is just what I would consider like the residual effect of, if you nail all this other stuff, here's an added bonus, and that is make Phoenix one of the premier free agent destinations in the NBA.
Yeah.
If you create this organization that now has a good reputation, you've got great weather. I know Suns fans don't like to hear this particular bit, but it being an hour away from Los Angeles is a perk for a lot of players. And I think ultimately here, like, what I would say is, in attempting to achieve this in the first place, you're not competing with LA. Don't think of it as we're competing with LA, New York, maybe Miami. Those are going to continue to be like the top 4 or 5 or the top 3 markets in general in terms of attracting free agency. But the goal for the Suns, if the Ishbias nail all this other stuff, then when we're sitting here 5 years from now, once the dust has settled, I think it's an attainable goal for the Suns to be to point at their organization and say, hey, we're more attractive than those other 26 teams. We're right at the start of the second tier is where I think they could be. And that's just a good place to be, just to attract some free agent talent. We've never really seen that happen in Phoenix, pretty much because of Robert Sarver. So, obviously there have been some good free agent signings over the years, but it's always been kind of like, average to high-level starter type players and never true superstar talent. So, yeah, make it happen.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And if we're talking about playing the media game, talking about the Suns as a potential free agent monster, and I put that in quotes, was a topic of Adrian Wojnarowski over his coverage of the sale of the Phoenix Suns and post-sale to Matt Ishbia. That's something they talked about on his podcast with Baxter Holmes. So it's definitely something that could happen. I think having a new owner is great. And that probably, I think for a NBA player, seeing an owner who is willing to invest matters as far as like players that want to win. But it starts with Devin Booker. It 100% starts with Devin Booker. So if you can find a way to capitalize on who he is right now in his prime over the next 5 years or so, that is a very, very, very important thing. And I think that's a great one. That's a great one to end this one on. You got anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's it for my list. Do you have anything else?
One real quick thing. The Knicks game, for most of you today, you'll probably listen to this on Monday. That's going to be on playback. If you hear this before that, join us for playback. If you can't, if you hear this after that game, sorry. We'll try to do another playback game every week. This is a tough stretch, I think, to watch games on playback because look, the Suns, what are they, like 1-5 in their last 6 or something like that? Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit tough.
If you join us on the stream, you know what you're signing up for.
Exactly.
You know what you're getting into.
Right. We'll be like that band playing on the Titanic as it sank into the ocean.
Can always count on us. 100%. I am here to fulfill my duty. And I know what it is.
Last one I just thought of, since I'm looking at all the injuries, maybe spend a bunch of money on the best training staff in the NBA again. Let's try and do that once again, because the Suns do use a lot of third-party contract workers for a lot of the stuff they do, including the training staff and scouting, by the way, and bringing those guys in-house and having the best one in the world probably would help in situations like this. So that's the last one I got to add. But thank you, everyone, for listening to us. I hope you have a happy new year, a great year. And we'll be back with a Patreon episode midweek. Join us for playback. If you'd like to join our Patreon for future episodes, patreon.com/thetimeline. You can join for as little as $3 to join the Discord, $6 a month to listen to extra episodes. But we appreciate you guys, and we'll be back soon.